Welcome to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, on WBAI, serving New York and the tri-state area. Coming to you from the northern English city of Bradford.
You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
Well, I was, in fact, in Ireland just a few days ago, and that's one of the things I want to talk about this afternoon. I was talking at the festival in the Irish nationalist area of West Belfast, in the still militarily and politically occupied northeastern part of the island of Ireland. The 7, 8, maybe 900-year struggle of the Irish people to be free of English domination is not yet complete, but hey, I think it's on the way to being complete. I think the Irish peace process is working, and that majority rule and independence from England, which is what the Irish people voted for freely in a democratic election almost 100 years ago, will, as a result of many things, come into harbour. And is that a lesson for other conflictual situations? That's one of the other things that we're going to be discussing this evening. You can follow my views, for example, on Syria on my YouTube channel, which is called Mollucca Red, M-O-L-U-C-C-A, Mollucca Red, and you can follow my views on Che Guevara, which is my latest podcast on that channel. And we're talking also about the politics of your country and mine and how they are intertwined, how they interface, and, of course, the ongoing economic situation in both of our countries. Deep crisis here in the United Kingdom. You tell me how it's going there. Neoliberal economics, how's that going? And tell me how the presidential election is going, because I'm interested, as everyone in the world is interested, in whether that big plank of wood, so wooden that in him the birds have begun to nest, Mitt Romney, is he going to be the next president of the United States, or is it going to be that massive disappointment, President Barack Obama? It's all down to you now. Aoife is handling the calls, as always. Without her, we wouldn't have a show. The number is 219-209-2900. That's 219-2900. Aoife, do we have any callers on the line?
And it's actually 212-209-2900.
209-2900. Have I got that right this time?
Mm-hmm. 209-2900.
I've only been doing this for a couple of years.
Well, the calls just started coming through, so I didn't get this person's name, but you're on the air.
Okay. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go to Cuba, you communist.
Well, that's that fellow that paints on the toilet wall and runs away. Do you remember him? Every now and again, he comes on and shouts, "Go to Cuba, you communist." Perhaps he's the person I should refer my latest podcast to. He'd enjoy it, wouldn't he? It's my paean of praise to Comandante Che Guevara. Why don't you, Mr. Toilet Wall Writer, go and consult it? You might learn something. Aoife, do we have a real caller on the line?
Well, I'm hoping so. I didn't get a chance to get this person's name either because the calls just started coming through. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, caller, where are you calling from?
Calling from Brooklyn, New York. David
Brooklyn, welcome.
From Brooklyn, New York.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I was impressed a couple weeks ago when you spoke about having to go to the emergency service, the National Health Service.
National Health Service for my wife, yes.
Yes, with you and your wife. And, one thing that's never talked about over here in the United States is the difference between the social benefits that accrue in most of the Western European countries versus what's here. We never hear about all the social infrastructure that exists in Europe.
Well, they want you to think that this savage, primitive,
I was wondering about
red
that.
in
Maybe
tooth
you
and
can
claw
fill us in on
naked capitalism
what
that the United States has is the only way that you can organize society, and the rest is communism. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you.
I'm saying they want you to think that this primitive, savage, Stone Age, red in tooth and claw, naked capitalism that you have in the United States is the only way that you can organize society, and that anything else is communism. Isn't that right?
Yes, so that's why it's kept quiet over here. You don't see anything about it in the media, and so people are in the dark about the social infrastructure that exists in Europe. The other thing that I have in mind is that, in Africa you have approximately, I think, 54 countries, and what I'm thinking is, are those countries really sovereign, or is this essentially, in most of them, neocolonialism that exists
Well, that's
today?
a good question that I've been speaking about over the last couple of days here, because on the 14th of August, it was the birthday of independent Pakistan. And the day before, it was the birthday of independent India. And who knows, soon we'll be invited to celebrate independent Bangladesh. But in truth, Pakistan and Bangladesh, India is a slightly different case, are not really independent countries at all. Hence, the government of Pakistan is in apparently unbreakable, indissoluble alliance with a country called the United States of America, thousands of miles away, which actually cares nothing for the people of Pakistan, has bankrolled the military dictators who have ruled Pakistan for more than half of the country's independent existence, and have totally subordinated Pakistan to American foreign policy in Afghanistan and in the region as a whole. So in what sense are they independent? They're not at all independent. China, on the other hand, is a truly independent country, for good or ill. Maybe it makes decisions which are wrong. Maybe it makes decisions that you and I regret.
Yes.
But they are independent decisions, and no one orders China what to do. But the United States orders Pakistan what to do on a day and daily basis.
Yes. And I guess
so independence is a moot point, isn't it?
Yes. Very important.
Okay, brother. Thanks for the call. Ife, do we have another?
Yes, you do. You actually have Ron from Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, I always like to hear New Jersey coming up. I've got lots of friends there. Not enough of them listen or phone the show. So you're especially welcome. Go ahead, sir. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, caller. Hello?
It seems like we're having problems on the phone, George.
Okay.
It seems like they're having a hard time.
On the line?
Yeah, it seems like people are having a hard time hearing you. Okay, let's try this one. Al from Mount Vernon.
Al, you're always welcome. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, Al.
Yes.
From Mount Vernon.
Yes,
Hi,
Al, you're on the air.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
You're on the air.
I'm on the air now? Okay, good morning.
Yeah, you're on the air. Go ahead, Al.
Yes, sir, I can hear you. I'm asking you this morning because I noticed one of the problems with us over here. When we get on the line, we don't ask for your information. We try to dictate the show. This morning, I'm simply going to carry out what I think this program is all about. Could you tell the American people for me, because I spent half my life in England, the difference between Social Security and don't have it? Because they don't seem to remember what it was before they had Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They don't seem to understand. So please explain to the American people for me.
And we have to define our terms first. But before we do, we need to bear in mind that a state of Social Security is surely the state for which we must strive. Because after all, the absence of Social Security means social insecurity. It means that you live in terror of becoming ill because you will not be able to afford the necessary and available medical assistance to treat your illness, and neither will you or your family be able to survive whilst you're not able to labor and work because you are ill. and that's enough to make you ill. Secondly, a state of social insecurity means that you live in terror of becoming old, because when you are old, you are no longer able to produce profit for others, who therefore will not employ you and will not pay you a fraction of what you have created as wages in order to keep you and your family alive. Thirdly, you will live in a state of terror of being poor, because the ultimate poverty of being without a home, without food, and begging on the streets is the necessary concomitant to social insecurity. So there is nothing ignoble about striving for a state of social security. Secondly, the existence of social security, or what we call in Britain the welfare state, is not a given. It was not always thus, and it may not always be. Indeed, to some extent, it has already, in the era of what I call voodoo economics, of the Reagan-Thatcher era, which continues by and large to this day, these elements of welfare, of social security that we managed to build in the post-Second World War era have begun to be taken away from us. And if the neocons, the neoliberal economics brigade, had their way, we would have no welfare. We would have no social security. And therefore, we'd live in a state of permanent insecurity, which is what capitalism prefers. Because, of course, if you're in a state of insecurity, then you are able to be hired and fired at will. You are able to be forced to work for the lowest possible rate of wages. You are able to be forced to accept the worst terms and conditions. You are deunionized, demobilized, and differentiated. You are balkanized. You are broken into pieces so that collective strength becomes just a distant memory. Now, both of our countries have some social security. We have more than you. France has more than us. Countries like Germany even have more than us. France probably has most of all. If you were choosing a place to go and live where you could have the best health service, the best education system, and the best welfare, if you needed it, you'd probably choose to go and live in France rather than in Britain. The last place in the so-called Western world that you would choose would be the United States of America, where even the most basic elements of social security are regarded by sections of the media and by the right wing in politics as being a kind of communism. When President Obama introduced what's called Obamacare, it was, first of all, a pale, pale shadow of the National Health Service that we enjoy, never mind the one the French enjoy, but it was described by the opponents of it as introducing a state of communism into the United States. And who knows, it might even win Romney the election. So you've got a long way to travel before you win the argument amongst people, even those people who stand to gain from it, but who live under a state of false consciousness, believing that somehow having free health care is bad for them, that somehow it would be better if they were continuing to be utterly dependent on HMOs and on charity where they could find it. That state of false consciousness exists everywhere, but exists in the United States more powerfully than it exists elsewhere. So you've got a long way to go. I'm ready to help you as much as I can. I hope the last few minutes of talk has been helpful in that regard. Thank you for your call. Aoife, do we have another?
Actually, yes. You have someone from Harlem, J.S. from Harlem.
J.S. in Harlem. Welcome to the show, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to congratulate you on what I perceive as your change, because a few months ago when you were elected and the question of Marianne Price came up, you seemed to suggest that that would bring down the peace process, and your recent statement at the Fela in Belfast was very welcome. But I'm just curious, you keep proposing that the peace process is working. How is it working with the rule of law not, they're holding Marion Price on secret evidence. They're holding Martin Corey. They haven't charged him in 2 years. How is the peace process working in Northern Ireland for people that dissent?
It isn't working in regard to these two prisoners, which is why I stated publicly, indeed I spoke to Marion Price on the telephone from West Belfast, just a few days ago. And I spoke with her husband and with the campaigners who are trying to have her released. I made the following statement. I make it again now. If the British state has evidence against Marion Price, they should bring charges, and due process should be followed. If they do not, they should implement the judge's ruling that she be freed. That does not mean, and just in case you're in any doubt about that, I need to state this, that does not mean that I support the politics of Marion Price. I do not. I explicitly state to you that I do not. But I do support the rule of law, and I do support fair treatment for detainees, and she is not receiving that fair treatment. There was a long war, as you are well aware, between Irish republicanism and British rule in the northeast corner of Ireland, which I stated at the beginning of this discourse, continues to be militarily occupied against the will of the Irish people by the British state, just for the avoidance of doubt, in case you think I'm here to wave the Union Jack or support unionism in any way. I'm not. But that war came to an end. That war came to an end by a process of negotiation between those who were fighting it and the British occupiers. And a process was set in train, which I believe will lead to the reunification of Ireland. And I support that reunification. But it follows that you can't pick and choose. You can't cherry pick. You can't say I support the agreement that was made between the belligerents, except in the following regards. You cannot be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You've either made a peace agreement or you haven't. And if you have, then you have to live up to it. And I think that that's what the Irish Republican movement is doing. There, thanks for that opportunity to get that off my chest. This is the mother of all talk shows. This is WBAI. This is George Galloway.
My fellow Americans, you can misunderestimate me if you will, but do not misunderestimate Mr. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. It always has controversial ideas and sometimes very big words like disambiguation. I got it right.
Well, don't misunderestimate me. I'm here and firing on all cylinders. I apologize for the quality of the line. I'm talking to you from Bradford in the north of England, from my constituency office, where on the 29th of March I was re-elected to Parliament for the sixth time, and now almost 25 years sitting in the British Parliament as a revolutionary, as a rebel. Not without a cause. I've got plenty of causes, and I'm here to talk to you about them, and also about your causes. So if you've got a point you want to raise with me, all you have to do is call Aoife. Aoife, do we have another on the line?
Yes, you have Ron. He tried to call back. Ron from Newark again.
Ron from Newark. Sorry, we lost the call earlier.
Hello, Mr. Galloway.
Yes, Ron, you're welcome. You're on the air.
Hey, nice to talk to you. What I'd like to say is, if it pertains to the election, I'm not for Mr. Obama. I'm surely not for Mr. Romney. I'm really concerned about Social Security. I mean, in this country, we lost all our pensions throughout the years.
Yeah.
You know, the 401ks ain't worth nothing. Social Security is actually a very important issue.
Yeah.
And it seems like Romney's going to destroy it, and Mr. Obama's going to maybe do less damage. But I'm very confused on where I'm going, who to vote for. I'm more of an independent. So I don't know. I just want the people to know that Social Security is going to be a big issue this year. And I was wondering
you're absolutely right, and the characterization you make is accurate. It's Tweedledee versus Tweedledum, but it seems to me a no-brainer that we shouldn't choose the dumber of the two twins, because, as you put it, President Obama will do less damage to the American people, less damage to the world. And we have to hope and pray that in his second term, he's a bit more like the candidate who ran for office before his first term than he has been as president of the United States. But I can't really believe that you are in two minds as to who to vote for. However independent you are, however disappointing President Obama has been, it's a no-brainer. There's only going to be one of two possible candidates emerge as the president in November. One of them is a billionaire, asset-stripping, war-loving, fundamentalist Mormon who wants to impose his weird and twisted view of society and the world on the people of the United States and on the world. And I'm sorry, I have to beg you not to take the risk in November and to WBAI cannot so advise. They're not allowed to be explicit, but I can be explicit. And as a foreigner, if you'll forgive me, I really have to say to you, it is a no-brainer. Romney is a very, very dangerous guy. And if he becomes president of the United States, head for the hills, if there are any hills that are safe enough. Ife, next call, please.
Sure. You have Joseph from the Bronx up next.
Joseph in the Bronx. Welcome, sir.
Yes, Mr. Galloway.
Yes, Joseph, go ahead.
I want to give a little historical information, if you don't mind. From what I've learned, there at one time in the 50s, there was a commission called the Reese Commission, right? And their job was to find out exactly what foundations do. And the lead investigator for this commission under Reese, Congressman Reese, was Norman Dodd. And he explained on the record that when he started his investigation, he was called by the president at that time of the Carnegie Foundation. And the president stated to Norman Dodd, off the record, of course, that the main purpose of the foundations, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Ford Foundation, was to merge the United States into the Soviet Union. And then after he explained that, then they were allowed to look at the minutes of the beginning of the Carnegie Foundation back in 1910. And these minutes, as this woman called Captain Casey went back and investigated, stated that their goal was to involve the United States into numerous wars in order to accomplish this goal. And then she retired once she found out that information. So that's what I wanted to say.
I'm speechless. I can't believe that an apparently sane man like you just said what you just said.
Actually listen to Norman
that
Dodd
the Carnegie Foundation was trying to merge the United States into the Soviet Union. You mean it was a communist conspiracy to end the existence of a country called the United States of America and place it under the Communist Party of the Soviet Union? Is that really what you're saying?
That's correct. This is back in 1910 when the woman, her name is
the Soviet Union
Casey,
didn't exist in 1910. The Soviet Union didn't exist until 1917.
When the Carnegie Foundation was created, Captain Casey was allowed to look at the minutes. She was given the authority to look at the minutes.
Yeah, but there's a fundamental error here, isn't there? If you're telling me this was done in 1910, the Soviet Union wasn't even a twinkle in Lenin's eye in 1910. It didn't exist until 1917.
What's that?
Well, I think we'll probably draw a veil over that conversation. Ife, I'm hoping there's another on the line.
Yes, you have Harriet from Flushing, right here in New York, Queens, New York.
Harriet in Flushing, New York, in Queens. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. I've spoken to you before about.
I remember.
Oh, you do? Oh, good. I wanted to ask you, and you may not take me seriously, but do you think that that you can see, or perhaps maybe suspend disbelief and view this global issue from a person of color. Do you see what seems to be the gearing up for a kind of race war?
Well, I don't
like
be candid. I think that the power in the country and in the world is capable of using sectarian or racial division amongst people to ensure their continued hegemony. I don't believe that's happening in the United States. I think that people of color in the United States have more power than they've ever had, still less than they ought to have. And if they organized themselves well and in a united way, they could have a great deal more. I know that issues of race continue to bedevil the United States presidency. The election, for example, is between a man who wants to put Winston Churchill's statue back into the Oval Office, namely Mitt Romney, because he says that this is of importance to the United States Anglo-Saxon heritage. But of course, the great majority of people in the United States are not Anglo-Saxons. So why would you want to, as it were, commemorate, to perpetuate a racial composition of the United States which no longer exists? And hallelujah if President Obama has put Winston Churchill into the museum, because President Obama is not an Anglo-Saxon, as the merest glance at his face makes clear. But I can't agree with you that there's a race war brewing. I think that there's a lot of wars brewing, but I don't think they're race wars. What do you think?
I think that certainly in the United States, and I think that this is a global interest, that people have been divided into castes, and that poor people are being included everywhere in the world where there is an issue. It is a place where there are people of color. That it may not be the imminent danger, but I think that the Nazism never really went anywhere, but just got reconstituted and reinstituted. For instance, in Palestine at the moment, the Palestinians are enjoying a situation which we and blacks in America had dealt with for a very long time. That situation is a Jim Crow Nazi eugenics type situation, which we, America, started. We started Jim Crow and we started the eugenics movement, which the Nazis took from us. So, and I think that the insecurity, the fact that whites are, but it will be a minority, is making them so insecure, making them so frightened that and with the combination of Israel's own extremely racist state and America and the indifference of not that white people are indifferent, but it's not. They don't see, they see it as they did in Nazi Germany. Oh, it can't possibly happen here. We're too civilized. And also, it doesn't directly affect them. And even though that they may see in the long run it does, that in the short one they don't see it as a personal thing, not consciously, but even unconsciously. They don't have that connection.
No, I don't agree with much of that, Harriet. I'm white with blue eyes, and I promise you, I feel the connection. And I think my record shows that. I don't see the world through the prism of color, and there are many people like me who are just as white as me and whose eyes are just as blue as mine. It's a very big mistake to think that, in these terms. Secondly, nowhere is too civilized to have fascism. Fascism exists as a political force, takes many forms, and it came to power in many places in very specific circumstances. It didn't just take place in Germany. It didn't mean that there weren't Nazis in Britain. There weren't Nazis in America, of course. There were and are Nazis in both countries. They just haven't come to power. They haven't achieved a critical mass in order to achieve power. But they came to power in many different forms in countries like Italy and in Spain and in Portugal. For a time, they had the possibility of power in other countries, but they were defeated. They were defeated by an anti-fascist alliance of your country, my country, the Soviet Union, as it then was, and other allies. And they were defeated on the battlefield, and their hideous monstrosity of an ideology was punctured and largely bankrupted for a long time. And it pretty much remains bankrupted. Lastly, however hideous the practices of Israel are, and however racist the state is, and however much apartheid is practiced there, the Israeli state is not a Nazi state. And for obvious reasons, this is not an allegation or an insult that should be casually tossed around. The Israelis are not Nazis. They commit big crimes against the Palestinian people, but they have not built gas chambers. They are not systematically seeking to physically remove from the earth the Palestinian people whom they have disinherited. They have not embarked upon eugenics, and we should not make these kind of, if I may say so, Harriet, wild allegations on the radio, because they are inflammatory in the extreme, and they are not correct. Ife, do I have another caller?
Yes, you do. You have Elle from the island. I'm not sure what island, but she's from the island.
That's an island?
Hey there. How are you?
I'm very well.
First of all, thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
May I continue? Okay.
Yes, please do.
I guess what I would like to make is just a comment in regards to the up-and-coming election and the dumbing of America.
Yes.
The dumbing of America, I came up with this in writing the transportation on the buses and on the trains. I noticed one thing. Very few people have a newspaper, and when I say a newspaper, I mean not the subway news that everyone is reading the same thing, but seeking some type of newspaper to gain knowledge on the conditions and the situation in various parts of the world. What they do have, however, is all little hand computers and hand phones where they're busy playing Pac-Man games and other distraction that is to keep them from focusing in on exactly what is going on around where they are sitting, where they're at. You have the constant bombardment of announcements saying if you see something, notify. So to me, people are being programmed to think by not thinking. They are being pacified as babies. Instead of giving them a nipple, you give them a game in their hand. Now, how does that play with the election, up-and-coming election? Folks don't really know the true issues. They don't know the history. They don't know what they should be focusing in on, and they only react to comments made that may be inflammatory or that may be said to really strike a soft spot in their hearts or in their minds to get them to think in a certain way. So when I say the dumbing of America, you have two major parties. And it seems as though we are conditioned in thinking that there's only up and there's only down. There is no other way in which this can go. Giving Obama a second term, I said, all right, he needs a second term to work with whom? The people that he first put in office, or the new people that are going to replace those that he put in office? These are the same controlling elements that will prevent him from doing whatever he promised to do. Stop the war, closing Guantanamo. I mean, hey, he started his own war. So where are we? It seems as though, as a country, we are being spun round and round and going where? You said twiddledee and twiddledum. To me, there's just twiddly-dee. That's it. We're just going round.
No, I'd go for D rather than dumb. But I agree with some of what you said there. And the first part, the lengthier part of what you said, I would once have agreed with in every particular, but I don't now. And I'll tell you why. I think you should say hallelujah that nobody on the subway and nobody in the bus is reading a newspaper, because what's in the newspapers is either trivial rubbish or lies. By and large, I believe that. And I believe that the fact that they're sitting with handheld computers and phones that can help them find information that is neither trivial nor lies is a good thing. So from my point of view, the day that the last newspaper editor is strangled with the last copy of a capitalist newspaper will be a day for rejoicing. I'm very glad that the circulation of newspapers is falling like a stone, and I'm glad that the credibility of the newspapers that continue to be bought is also falling like a stone, because these organs that dominated the information vista, the information horizon for so long, is coming to an end. And now we have many, many ways of accessing information that does not require the permission, neither must it pass through the prism of the multi-millionaire, billionaire press mogul owners of newspapers. So I'm very glad that fewer and fewer people are reading newspapers, and I'm very hopeful about the fact that they are not staring into space, but they're looking at their computers and looking at their phones, because you have a much better chance, even by chance, even a monkey sitting with an iPhone has a much better chance of stumbling upon the truth on the internet than they have of stumbling upon it in one of these newspapers. Of course, there's a lot of rubbish on computers. There's a lot of rubbish on the iPhone. But there's also a lot of truth, and it can be found. I myself now have almost 90,000 followers on Twitter. You could follow me at George Galloway. I have almost 90,000 followers on Facebook. You can find that at George Galloway MP. I have almost 12,000 videos on YouTube. Through all of these platforms, I'm able to talk directly to people and give them the benefit or otherwise of my analysis, my take on things. I have 4 television programs. I have 2 a week and 2 additional ones per month. So that's 8, 10 television programs per month. I have a weekly radio show on WBAI. So if anybody wants to hear what I think the truth is, they have ample opportunity to find it. And of course, there are many, many others, Noam Chomsky, and many, many others that you might want to follow to hear an alternative point of view. And we're able to do that now. We don't need anybody else's permission in order to do it. So I think the new age that we're in is the dawn of a much better time for us. And I think our rulers will have a much more difficult task in trying to keep control of us
May
in
I
this
say
new
something?
age. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. I would like to say, basically, it's wonderful that you have access to communicating, but you are one individual. Books contain knowledge from various peoples, from various viewpoints. When one reads a book, one has the opportunity to critically...
It would be better if they were reading a book. I'll grant you that.
Okay. When one reads a book, one has the opportunity to critically critique what is being, what has been written, and to also to develop one's own mind or thought waves. Now, the other thing in regards to newspapers, when I said no one is reading a newspaper, I don't mean everybody's reading the Post and everybody should read whatever is out there. There are other newspapers out here that people can, if they search, they can gain access, they can purchase, which gives them views from different parts of the world, written by people in different parts of the world. But in regards to the Internet is a wonderful thing, but keep in mind, people go and they Google certain things and come up with, quote, what they consider as facts, or what is the other one? Encyclopedia, Wikipedia. All right. And if someone out there wishes to correct, they can correct what's on that particular site that's giving information, whereupon people who then Google to get the facts may be getting information that has been altered, that has been changed, or may be totally incorrect. What I'm saying basically right now is that you have the government.
I have never corrected the many inaccuracies in my Wikipedia entry on the basis that if I began correcting them, I'd never be done correcting them. So nobody should believe everything they read on Wikipedia or anywhere.
Right, and no one should believe...
They have options to compare, don't they? To compare what's said by many people on many things.
Okay,
I've lost that call. Aoife, give me another one, please.
Okay. I'm not sure if you're able to hear what people are saying sometimes.
I am,
yeah. Okay, you can hear it? Okay. Yeah. Next up is Jeremiah from Manhattan.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. I'm actually getting off work in the West Village, but I'll be headed back to Flushing, Queens myself momentarily.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about the subject of racism since it was raised earlier. I just wanted to say,
yes.
Although it might sound like a crazy idea, I want to postulate that racism does not exist. And what I mean by that is the effects of racism exist very much. They've had a huge influence on history and on our everyday life. But I don't really buy that racism itself exists, and let me say why. Because there's no correlation between my skin color or the texture of my hair or somebody else's skin color or ethnic features that creates hatred in another human being. It's a cover-up for hatred. Hatred exists within the human heart or within the human mind, and race becomes a very convenient way to express that. If race isn't there, we'll find a religious reason, an ideological reason. We'll find a reason to kill each other. But as my father told me, if you take the whole of humanity, it's only a single grain of sand that separates one person from the next person.
Yeah. Well,
I also wanted to say that actually a good friend of mine.
It's not the whole truth because there are ideologies, Jeremiah, that do explicitly state that some races are superior to others, that some races are subhuman. Nazism, that we discussed earlier, had the view that Jewish people, Slavic people, Gypsy, Roma people were subhumans, Untermensch, and therefore that there was an superior people, an Aryan race, even though Hitler was the least Aryan of men. But that, perhaps...
You know, Mr. Galloway, I'm having trouble hearing you like many of the previous callers. But my last question, and I'll let another caller jump in. I just wanted to make a comment that if any particular group is superior to the rest of the world, then how come they don't have all...
Hello, guys? Guys, I'm sorry. Hello? Everyone is... I don't think y'all can hear each other because y'all are talking over each other right now. So
I can't hear Mr. Galloway.
Yeah.
Well, my comment, if you could just spread the word, Ife, is that if any group...
hundreds to the dozen. Ife, let's go on to another call and see if we got a better connection.
Okay, Jeremiah, we're going to have to talk to you again.
Jeremiah, always welcome, brother. I hope to hear from you next week.
Okay.
On a better line.
Yeah, so we have David from Manhattan.
David in Manhattan, welcome to the show.
I want to discuss some important issues for economic justice.
Yes.
I have a vision to mobilize students this September. Have you heard of the Khan Academy? K-A-K-N?
No, tell me about it.
It's a internet thing where they have math, chemistry, physics lessons for students to educate themselves.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of mobilizing students to get academic teams by threes, the power of three. In other words, if let's say a student leader gets 3 people in a day to join his team, and those 3 people the next day get 3 people, that's 9. So that would be a 13-member team. And teams should compete against each other for academic excellence. That's one vision I have. And the second vision I have is not only should they help each other academically and use the Khan Academy, which would help them, they should try to get their teachers to assign lectures. These are 10-minute lectures on all these important subjects.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's an interesting issue for some. Maybe some out there will take you up on that. I need to press on because the hour is late, and I want to get everybody in. Aoife, do we have anyone else on the line?
Yes, you have Chris from Queens on the line right now.
Chris in Queens, welcome to the show. Go ahead, Chris. Everybody in. Aoife, do we have anyone else on the line?
Chris, you have to turn your radio down.
Chris, turn your radio down, my friend.
Hello?
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I was just curious if maybe you could just explain the difference between socialism and Marxism and how it's slowly being implemented into America. And also, if you actually
think socialism and Marxism is slowly being implemented into America?
Yes, and also if you also
Have they just let you out for a few days? I mean, which particular mental institution are you habitually residing in?
It's hard hearing you. You sound very distant.
Well, let me raise my voice then. Anybody who thinks that socialism and Marxism are slowly being implemented in the United States of America actually needs medical attention, and I'm not qualified to give it. So let me take a better call. Aoife, if you've got one.
Yes. Sorry. You have Deborah, who's calling from Staten Island, born in Harlem.
Deborah in Staten Island, ex-Harlem. Welcome to the show.
Hi, George. It's me, trapped in Staten Island. Love your show.
Thank you.
Was trying to catch it one day when I, after 3 years of employment and even occupying Wall Street about the real fact of unemployment in America, that they're pretending like we're all not here. I was listening to your show when I was forced to work something called WEP, W-E-P, like in Paul, which is Work Experience Program. And just want to say, I had people there whose minds were in shackles arguing with me about cleaning up the parks and what have you when you have degree, professional presentation, excellent resume, education, and people who are now long-term unemployed and unemployment insurance is now maxed out. You're forced to do that. And, you're spoken to in these programs like you're a moron. Well, I was there doing that and having them giving me the evil eye. When you were talking about the racism that was going on between the Scots and the Irish and how it was imposed. And I couldn't call in then, but I just wanted to say I have one mother my mom's from the Bahamas. She came here as a British citizen in the 40s, waving the Union Jack. And there's so much Scottish and Irish ancestry that's running through the Caribbean. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was a Cargill, the ones that owned the meat company and all that.
Yes.
And I could just remember saying, I wish that something could be done to really talk about the Scottish ancestry and Irish ancestry, including the fact that Martin Luther King's DNA is Irish. His Y chromosome came up as Irish. And just wanted to know, that, and also to the other gentleman that who said, racism is an expression of hate within. It's actually socially engineered. And a good part of it was before the Irish lobby Congress to become white. a whole idea of race was being used by the British against them, especially in Jamestown, Virginia in the 1600s, when not owning the economic system of capitalism, the Europeans, especially in Bristol and London and in Ireland too, took poor people off the streets in chains, threw them on ships and said, you'll work your labor off where we tell you to. Well, where they told them to go, and just took them over there in ships was to Jamestown, Virginia, into the British colonies. And when they interacted with the Africans, some of whom were indentured servants and some others who were enslaved, they started intermarrying like crazy, and did so in Ireland, also amongst the Irish, did so in Barbados, known as the Redlegs, and started insurrecting. So then they said, use this whole idea of racism against people. Hello?
Yes, I'm fascinated by what you're saying.
They started using this whole idea of racism against other people, basically saying, look, these people are going to interact against us. They're in sugarcane plantations down in Barbados, and they're fighting us back. The Redlegs, the legs are red because they were sunburnt. They like each other. They were intermarried. They liked each other. They were family units, and that cohesion between Brits, between Irish, between Africans, and everyone's in the same situation. The only difference with them coming over by ship was that they didn't take their identity away. They didn't take their cultural, their names. They completely redressed us with these names.
That's right.
Every time you say Oprah Winfrey, or you say,
my
name's
actually
this, that. It's,
some of the descendants of precisely those these red-leg people. It is a fascinating subject. We don't have time to properly develop it, Deborah, but it was a great call, I must say, and definitely the best call of the day, one of the best calls that we have had. I reiterate my position on this. There are people who are racist, and our rulers, by and large, are not racist, but they are much prepared to use racism to help divide people, the better to rule them. And they want to rule them so that they can exploit them and steal their things. That's really the bottom line so far as I'm concerned. Let me try and squeeze one more call in, if I may.
Yeah, you have about
a last call of the day.
Yeah, you have about a minute. You have James from Queens.
James from Queens, welcome.
Galloway.
Go on, James.
I can't understand you saying that we have two parties, but why is it not there's a third party for the people to vote on or have some sort of understanding?
Who is the third party, though, in November? Have you got one?
Say again?
Have you got a third party in November?
Well, I'm at the point I'm discussing with both parties.
You are? Okay, well, keep us posted on that. Let us know how that goes. Well, it's been the mother of all talk shows. It's been George Galloway. It's been WBAI. This has not been London calling, but Bradford calling. And I ask for your forgiveness for any imperfections in the quality of the line. But I hope you thought the argument was still worthwhile. If you want to come back next week, you're welcome. And bring someone with you. You'll be even more welcome. This has been George Galloway. This has been WBAI. This has been the mother of all talk shows.
Quit holding out and draw another breath. London calling, and I don't want to shout. But while we were talking, I saw you nodding out. London calling, see, we ain't got no hide, except for that one with the yellowy eyes. The acid is coming, the sun's zooming in, engines stuck on him, the wheat is going big, a nuclear error. But I have no fear, 'cause London is bad.